All right, everybody. Well, thanks so much for joining us today for Virtual Career Fair Prep. We're really excited to share with you what you can expect going into the virtual fair, which will be on Tuesday, September 29th from 2 to 5 p.m. So less than a week away. So we have two coaches that are going to present today. I'm going to introduce myself, and then I'm going to let my co-presenter introduce herself. But my name is Rachel Dieter, and I am one of the career coaches here at Xavier. I coach students primarily in the College of Business, but right now I'm also coaching students in sport management, marketing, and education students too. So those are the groups that I coach. Katie?
Awesome, and I'm Katie. I'm going on my third week here, so some of you may not have met me before, but I'm really excited to be here, and I coach about half of the majors in the College of Arts and Sciences, as well as our exploratory students.
All right, so we are recording our session today, so that way we have it kind of for our purposes and in case anybody missed the session. But we're going to go for about 30 minutes today of content, and then the last 15 minutes of our session today will be for you all to ask any questions that you may have. You're welcome to use the chat for any questions that come up throughout, but because we're both going to be presenting, they may have to wait until the end. So with that, let's go ahead and get started.
Okay. All right, so for the Fall Career Fair, and I know Rachel mentioned this a little bit already, but it is coming up. It's next Tuesday, the 29th, 2 to 5 p.m. Eastern Time, and it is virtual this year, which is a little bit new for all of us, but it'll be held via Handshake, so if you've registered already, that was done on Handshake, and this particular platform that Handshake developed was developed as a response to COVID, the pandemic, with us still saying, hey, we still want to have a career fair, with employers saying we still really want to meet with students. So that really spurred the creation of the virtual platform. So again, it'll be at next Tuesday. It's open to all students and alumni regardless of your major. So all majors are welcome to come, and employers will be recruiting both for internships and full-time employment. So if you're someone who's not looking for a full-time job, it's still a really great way to look for internships, and maybe if you're a first-year student, great way to network too and get familiar with what a virtual career fair is like, in case we have one in the spring as well. So there are a total, I think, of 88 employers as of right now, and still increasing every day. So we're going to do a demo in a little bit here, just kind of going through how you can view employers, how you can sign up for sessions. So Rachel will go into that in a little bit, but we'll go through the employer list and how you can view that. Okay, so a little bit about Handshake and just kind of how logistically everything's going to work. So Xavier we invited employers to attend the virtual career fair, and then those employers register and they can fill out a schedule for who's going to attend the fair, when they're going to have sessions. So there's a couple different ways that employers can engage with students at the virtual career fair, which is a welcome, I think, added change for students, is there's multiple different ways you can interact with employers. So employers can host 30-minute group information sessions where there'll be multiple students. So if you're someone who maybe just wants to learn more about the employer or hear more information about the types of positions that they hire, great type of session to attend. But if you want to have more of that one-on-one time with employers, signing up for the 10-minute one-on-one sessions is going to be where you're going to want to go. And then just a little bit more information about who can attend the sessions. Group information sessions are open to all, but you might notice on Handshake that there's employers that can set qualifications for the one-on-one session. So for whatever reason, if it doesn't let you sign up for a one-on-one session, you probably don't meet one of the qualifications that they have set. And then just so that you all know too, Handshake has designed this platform with accessibility in mind. So as an example, there's going to be chat functionality when you're talking with employers. So even if you are doing the video, there'll be the opportunity to chat in the window too, if that's something that's more your style. Okay, and then a little bit more, and this is something, again, Rachel's going to go through in depth so you know how it works step by step. But basically, you as a candidate can schedule sessions with employers by logging into your Handshake account, and everything is scheduled. So we really encourage you to sign up for sessions ahead of time because sessions will fill up. And along with that, too, employers want to see that students are signing up for sessions so they know that, oh, we're going to get to engage with all these great students today. So we're really pushing that you sign up for those sessions ahead of time. So again, we recommend that you schedule ahead of time, but you can schedule the day of the fair. So if you do see an employer that has open sessions that day, you say, ooh, I do really want to meet with them, you can still sign up that day. And then with the sessions filling, because we have had some already fill, we do encourage employers, if sessions do fill, to open more sessions, but we can't guarantee that they will. So that's why it is so important to schedule in advance. One thing to note is you cannot join a session after it has started if you have not registered in advance. So keep that in mind. And then there's no cap to the total number of sessions that you attend. So if you're wanting to attend a variety of sessions, go for it. And then to participate the day of the fair, you'll just log in. And again, Rachel will kind of go through this process with us.
Yeah, absolutely. So what I'm going to do right now is go ahead and do a little demo, which is what our next slide says. So I'm going to open up an internet tab and share my screen with you all. So as Katie mentioned, this fair is going to be hosted through Handshake. So to sign up for any sessions and participate in the day of, all you need to do is go to Handshake and log in with your Xavier credentials. So I'm going to walk you through the process of finding the fair, and then we're going to talk a little bit about how to search for those sessions and how to find and sign up for sessions with employers. So once you log into Handshake, what you're going to want to do is hit events. You can click it up here at the top, and you can click it over here in the middle of the page. They will take you to the same place. And then once you're viewing events, you want to use this career fair filter. This is going to filter out events that are only career fairs, so you're not seeing anything else, which when you're trying to register for sessions is what you want. However, when you're looking to connect with employers in other ways, it's definitely a good idea to take a look at some of those other events. And then we can see our virtual career fair is going to pop up right here. So if we click on it, this is going to take us to the fall career fair page. So this is a fake student account. We're already registered. So if I click unregister, you can see just right here, it's a blue button and it's going to prompt you to register. So if you click that, you're going to be good to go and now you're registered, but you are not signed up for any employer sessions. Just after you hit register, all it means is you said, hey, I think I should go to that. So you want to make sure you sign up for those sessions. And like Katie said, it is super important. I just got an email from a student who said that all of the sessions were full for an employer. And that's really sad because I can't guarantee that there's time for her to connect with that employer now. So do make sure that you go in and you sign up for those sessions as soon as possible. Like sit here and listen to the rest of what we have to say. But after that, make sure you go look and you can sign up for some sessions with employers. So it's immediately going to prompt you to view employer sessions once you register. However, if you registered earlier and you didn't sign up for any sessions, you can always just click this available sessions tab, and this is going to show you all of the sessions that are open. So what you can do is you can search if you're trying to connect with a certain company. Let's say you wanted to connect with Cintas, and now we're going to rely on my somewhat slow internet to see if it can pull it up. So we can see Cintas is going to show up, and if I wanted to sign up for a one-on-one session, it doesn't look like they're hosting any group sessions. Then I can click this one-on-one session. One thing to note about the Handshake platform, it requires you to make your profile public when you register for a session. So if you're participating in a group information session, those are those 30-minute sessions where you're going to be in a large group with an employer. It needs to be public to everybody who would be in those sessions. So that means it needs to be set to the community. If you're only going to participate in a one-on-one session, then just having it public to an employer is fine. So then I would need to select and then update. I'm not going to do this because this is a fake student account and we don't want employers to see this account. But then any sessions that I've signed up for would be over here on the right-hand side, and they would also show up here under My Sessions. And then once you signed up for sessions, so they would all be listed out here. Over here on the right, where right now it says show open session, if this was an actual session, it would just say start video. And so that's how I would launch into the call with that employer, whether it's a group session or a one-on-one session. And then just a note on filters. So you can filter out if you're looking for internships or part-time jobs, full-time jobs, location, you can filter out by all of those ways. And one thing that's actually really great about the career fair being virtual is that we've seen employers that we don't normally get to connect with because they're not within like a reasonable driving distance of Cincinnati. So we've seen a little bit more of a connection from other companies, which is awesome. But you can also use this all filters button. So if you are an international student, who needs to think about work authorization, you can select check boxes for that. If you're looking for a certain industry, you can search for that. Jobs or internships, full-time or part-time, and then you can search for major. One thing that I will note is that employers have been encouraged to not select specific majors. So that allows them to attract a broader group of talent and fill up more of their sessions. So if you are looking for Cintas and they're not showing up under a specific major, go ahead and look and just search for them. If there's a company that you're like, I think they're going to come, they always come, or there's a company that you have in mind, they may just not have selected your major. That doesn't mean that you wouldn't be able to talk to them at the fair necessarily, unless they set qualifications for their sessions like Katie mentioned. So we're going to go back to our presentation. All right. So one thing that's really important that you don't have to think about before you go to an in-person fair is making sure that your technology is ready to go before you participate in this virtual fair. So with that, you want to make sure that any technology you're planning to use for the fair is up to date. Nothing like logging onto a Zoom call when all of a sudden Zoom is like, hey, you have to update. Not a good time, especially not when you're trying to make a good first impression with an employer. So make sure everything that you're planning to use for the fair is up to date. And the Handshake platform has actually decided to use a video platform called Twilio for the fair. Employers may be using their own platform, but there is a link on the last slide which would allow you to test your video in advance. So we'll share that with you too. And then because, like I mentioned, your Handshake account does have to become public, at least to employers, and most likely if you're going to participate in that group session to everybody, you do want to make sure that all that information is accurate. So because employers can set qualifications for their one-on-ones, you also want to make sure that you can talk to everybody that you want to. So if there's something that's wrong, make sure you fix it. Make sure you add a graduation date because Handshake doesn't populate that automatically. I will say that sometimes I meet with students who by credit are a junior, even if they're going to graduate like in May 2021. I can't fix that. That's because class year goes by credit. So that's not something that we can fix. But if there is something that is wrong, come talk to me, come talk to Katie, and we'll work to get it figured out. We might not be able to fix it, but we can probably work with someone who can. So if there's something that's truly incorrect, please let us know. We don't want that to hold you back. You do want to upload a resume, so Handshake does have a spot to upload one. You want to make sure that you do that because employers can look at those in advance of the fair, so they may ask you questions about certain pieces of your experience. They can look at it during, and they can look at it after. And then you do also want to upload a recent and professional photo to your account. I say recent and professional because I see a lot of graduating seniors or new alumni with portraits from high school as their professional photo, and that's fun, but probably not what you look like anymore. And you also want to make sure, it's not a picture of you and your friends hanging out. Same thing with dating profiles. I want to be able to tell who you are. So just important things to keep in mind as you update that profile. All right.
Okay, so now we're going to get a little bit more into prepping for the fair and techniques you can use as you're preparing to be as prepared as possible when you're with employers. So what we really recommend is coming up with a list maybe of your top 5 or some employers that you really want to meet with, that you want to schedule with, and then taking some time to do research on them. So for example, read their profile on Handshake. They're usually pretty short, so it won't take too much of your time. Go to their website, see what the culture of the company is like. Look at their social media to learn a little bit more about them, especially because when you think about in-person fairs, you might not know how much time you'll spend with the employers. It might be a really short conversation, but in these one-on-ones, you're going to get 10 minutes. So it's really important that you're prepared, that you know about the company so that you can engage with employers in a way that doesn't become awkward, and it helps when you know about the employer, so you can say, oh, I saw that, your company really values volunteering and service. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? And then that opens the door for the employer to say, oh, now I can talk about this without having to think of something else to talk about with the student if the conversation starts to get a little bit awkward. So that research is really important, and it will also help you with your elevator pitch, or when you first start to talk to the employer, sliding in some research that you've done, or saying, oh, I was really interested in this company because of X, Y, and Z, helps them realize, oh, this student really cares and is very interested in us. They clearly took the time to do the research. So it shows that initiative, I think, that you take as well. And then I think once you make that list of employers or sign up for sessions and you say, okay, these are my employers that I'm going to work with, I would also rank them based on your interest as well, just so you kind of know, okay, this employer is my first priority, this one's more lower down the list, and then maybe scheduling one-on-ones with your lower ranked employers first, so you can get those nerves out of the way, the technology issues out of the way, so when it comes time to talk to your number one employer, you are all ready to go and on your best behavior. So. Okay, and then speaking of the elevator pitch, since I mentioned it, that elevator pitch, and I know it's something we talk about in the in-person fairs as well, but is a really important part of making that first impression with an employer, and it will pique their interest in you. So just to go over the elevator pitch and what it is really quickly, it's basically an introduction of who you are, what you have to offer, and why you're interested in this company in particular. We tell students it's about 30 seconds to a minute, but don't feel like you need to time it and say, oh, it needs to be 30 seconds or it needs to be a minute. Elevator pitches are a way that you can prepare yourself, but also not feel, we don't want them to be rehearsed, where you step into the Zoom room with the employer, they say hello, and you just launch into this elevator pitch that sounds like you've been practicing it for days. So you want it to be more natural, but it's good to have a couple things of, I want to make sure that I talk about this, this, and this. So maybe you want to talk about your major and one club that you're involved in that has to do with your major. Maybe like 3 things that you think you have to bring. So maybe you could say, I think my public speaking skills and my like analytics or other things like that, just having like a couple of themes of things you can say. And then I was really interested in this company because XYZ, or I was really hoping I could hear more about this, or what internships you have to offer because I'm very interested in one. So it's really about finding that balance between obviously not wanting to say nothing so that employers have nothing to kind of go off of, but not going so long and rambling for so long that they're like, wait, I want to say something back to you. So keeping it precise is very important too, and you'll want to tailor it to each company, obviously, because there's going to be different things about each company that you're interested in, and you can just I would just have like a little piece of paper or something that maybe has like, okay, this company, I'll talk about this, which Rachel will talk about a little bit later too. But then maybe taking some time to practice that elevator pitch ahead of time, just so you have an idea of what you're going to say, not so that you get into the Zoom room and you're like, wait, shoot, what was I gonna say? But maybe having a couple points on a piece of paper that you're like, I'm gonna hit on these 3 things and practice it a little bit ahead of time, I think will help.
Yeah, so speaking of taking some notes and having them prepared, this is one way that you could formulate kind of your elevator pitch and keep them in mind so that you can kind of have a break. And one thing I will note, so these sessions are designed to be 10 minutes so that you have time to take a break between each one. If Handshake had set them for 3 or 5 minutes, it would be like chickens running around with their heads cut off, because they'd be like, you wouldn't have any time for a break. What if you needed to use the I can't even say bathroom. What if you need to use the bathroom? What if you needed to like take a break and look at your notes? So they've designed them to be longer so that you have a time to take a breath in between each session. So don't feel like you can't schedule your sessions back to back, because you can. So that said, you're going to make sure that you make a note of the company name and then why you're interested in them. So of the 88 employers who are coming to the career fair, why do you want to spend 10 minutes or 30 minutes with them? Why should they want to spend 10 minutes with you? So this could be things like your major, it could be a club or an organization you're involved with, it could be previous internship or work experience that would be relevant to the position. but why should they be interested in you? If there are any positions posted that you were specifically interested in that you want to mention, then you could do that and list them there. If not, that's okay. We've heard from a couple companies, especially regarding like internships, that they don't know exactly what they're going to be able to hire. They know they're going to have their internship programs. They just don't know exactly what their numbers are like yet, so they maybe haven't posted something yet. So even if there isn't anything posted, don't be afraid to engage with that company. It's a great time to still build a relationship, even if you're not sure exactly what it's going to look like. And then questions. So traditionally at an in-person fair, we would say one question is enough, but you have 10 minutes. So like Katie's saying, use this to your advantage. You get those full 10 minutes. So if you want to use them, and like I said, they're designed long, so you can have a break, but you could go that full time if you wanted to. And so make sure you have a couple of questions prepared. And I think kind of the ultimate thing too, think about quality over quantity. I'd rather you have a shorter interaction that's really high quality than go on for 10 minutes and ramble. Same kind of thing with your elevator pitch. It should be concise and strong. Don't take a whole minute just to say everything you need to say if you could say it in a shorter amount of time. So this is what it could look like when it's all filled out. It doesn't need to be neat or beautiful, but the point is that it's enough for you to remember what you wanted to say. So it doesn't need to be something that anybody else can understand. So just make sure that it's something that when you look at it, it's going to jog your memory of what you wanted to say to each company. And what I would do is I would organize it by time. So whatever session you have first, that's the pitch I would write out first. I think that's just going to be easier for you to keep track of. So once you actually signed up for sessions, to go back and then sign up or write out kind of whatever notes it is that you want for each company. So another really big piece of a career fair is that you have a chance to present your resume. And typically at an in-person fair, you do this at the beginning of your interaction or the end of your interaction when you're talking to an employer. But obviously we're missing out on that in-person piece with it being a virtual format. So that said, take advantage of that space on Handshake to upload your resume. Actually, once Katie starts talking, I will try and pull up, or maybe once we get to the questions, I'll send an article, because if I find it now, it'll mess up the screen sharing. But I will find the article on how to upload a document and send that all to you, so you can figure that out if you haven't done that already. But note that some employers may want you to send your resume to them directly. So sometimes we have employers bring multiple recruiters, and some folks may be really familiar with Handshake, and some people may never work with Handshake because this, they just go to career fairs for fun, and they don't necessarily work with this all the time. So they may not be comfortable. Be prepared to send it in an email. And by be prepared, I mean know where it is and be ready to, drag and drop and send it off. I meet with students about the resume sometimes, and it would shock you the number of times that we sit down and then they're like, oh, wait, let me pull it up. And we spend like 3 minutes waiting for them to pull it up. And when you only have 10 minutes with an employer, that's not how you want to spend your time. So be really mindful of that. Have it ready to go in case they ask for it. And they may be able, depending on what platform they're using, they may just ask you to share your screen too. So that would be another way to do that too. All right, go ahead, Katie.
Okay, perfect. So we know this is not a resume presentation, but we want to hit on just some quick important parts of your resume. And keep in mind too that we're hosting drop-in hours for the career fairs, and we're taking appointments obviously too. So if these tips speak to you, or you're thinking, oh shoot, I need to have my resume reviewed, do not hesitate to schedule an appointment or come to our drop-ins, and we're happy to help with that. But just a couple things to keep in mind just generally for resumes. Generally, your resume should be about 1 page with appropriate white space. You don't want it to be so busy that there's just so much going on, but yet you want to have it look clear and clean. Generally, you want single spacing with margins between 0.5 and 1 inch. I would not go any narrower than 0.5 inches because then it does get a little busy. Generally, consistent font, formatting, and grammar punctuation is really important. You'd be amazed at the amount of resumes I've seen with such a glaring spelling error, but when you look at your resume a million times, it's so easy to miss it. So even if you think your resume is perfect, I would have at least one other set of eyes look at it. I recently reviewed a friend's resume, and they had the word skills in all caps spelled with 1 L. But when you have words in all caps, the auto spelling tool doesn't catch them. So that's the all caps you definitely want to check for sure. And then font generally shouldn't be smaller than 10 point, just because then it gets really hard to read. using bullet points to communicate your skills and experiences. So again, that's really going to be the bulk of your resume, should be those bullet point statements that really highlight your skills as they're relevant to the positions that you're applying for. Really important that you start those bullet points with action verbs. And again, we have a really great resource with examples of action verbs. So if that's something you're struggling with, definitely let us know and reach out. Quantifiable information is going to be really important to employers as well. So if you increased sales by X percentage, or you got 20 members to join a new club or something similar to that, including those numbers allows employers to have a better picture of what you did. And then of course, highlighting accomplishments and responsibilities, and really thinking in terms of the skills that you developed, again, as they relate to the types of jobs that you're applying for. And then of course, including information that is relevant to the job. When employers look at resumes, they want to be able to find what they're looking for right away. So things like hobbies, things like references are something you can leave off your resume. For references specifically, that's something that you could send later on when they ask for it. So just a couple tips about resumes. Okay, and then we've talked about this a little bit already, but just some more pointers on interacting with employers at the virtual fair. Just making sure that filling up 10 minutes can be very daunting. So it is okay for you to not take the full 10 minutes, but it is okay if it is. If you're having a really great conversation, keep it going by all means. But if you're thinking, I have another session that's right after this, and I really need to get something to drink because my voice is getting scratchy, feel free to tell the employer, I really want to respect your time and I want to make sure I can prep before my next session. Do you mind if can we talk through this later? Maybe I can get your contact information to continue this conversation later. So keeping that in mind, and of course, beginning by giving your pitch and having the employer introduce themselves, having questions prepared. So again, just showing the employer that you're prepared and that you care is really important. And then really following the employer's lead, I think, is important too. So if an employer starts, if you think about it, employers probably have a lot of sessions in a row. So if an employer wants to start with that little bit of small talk where they're saying, how's it going so far? Don't feel like you have to be like, oh no, I was gonna do my elevator pitch right now. Oh my gosh. It's okay to say, oh, I'll engage in the small talk. And then once we get to actually talking about myself, then I can really talk about those details. So if they have questions for you or they have other ideas on how to fill the time, just go along with it. You can always save your questions if you don't get time to ask them, like if they spend a lot of time going through general information about the company. Feel free to conduct an informational interview or follow up with them to do that, to send a thank you note to, and we'll talk about some follow-up for them too, but following up is always a good idea with employers. And then again, quality over quantity. So just one last reminder, don't feel like you have to spend those 10 minutes. If you had 5 minutes of great conversation, don't spoil it, just tell them that you need to go to your next session. Okay, and then a couple things to keep in mind just generally with technology, because we don't think of these things because we haven't done virtual career fairs. So there's no handshake, obviously, that first impression, and there's limited body language. So it can be harder to read the employer. And so that's why we really recommend using the video if you're able to, or if you have that access to be able to do that, just because then you can at least see the employer, you can feed off of their energy, you can see the body language that they're using. So then just kind of a couple little housekeeping things. Make sure you're facing a source of light, just because it's easier to see your face, to see you, and it makes it a little bit less distracting for the employer. And then make sure that you have a background that's not distracting. I remember being in an interview a while back where there was this painting behind someone that was just so cool and so intricate that I found myself looking at the painting more than I was looking at the person. So you just want to make sure that the employer is focused on you and you alone. You are the shining star in this moment. So making sure that your background isn't distracting will only help you in the long run. And then try to find a quiet place with background noise. I do know that you all have roommates, you all have pets, you have all different things going on. So if you do know, like, it's likely that there's going to be background noise, I think it helps in the beginning to say, just so you know, I live with X number of roommates. There might be a little bit of noise, but I tried to let them know, like, to be as quiet as possible, just to give the employer a heads up so they're not surprised when somebody walks by or there's yelling or something like that. Making eye contact, I know it looks a lot differently virtually, but I think as long as you're being really intentional about it, that's really what matters. Dressing up is still important. They'll still be able to see probably from your shoulders up, so make sure that you're dressed for success, because again, that really shows that you care and that you took the time and put the effort in to be with the employer. And then last but not least, practice. Again, even if you just need to say to a friend, hey, can I just Zoom call you real quick to make sure that I'm not, you know, my favorite is when students come on and they're like this. So even if you need to just make sure that the height is right, that practice will help you for sure.
Yeah, so just a couple things to add to this. So when you don't face the source of light, if the light source is behind you, you can't see your face. So I meet with students sometimes and you're like, is anyone actually there? I don't know, I can't tell. So make sure that they can see your face, and the easiest way to do that, like honestly right now I'm just facing a window. You can invest in ring lights. I wouldn't do it. I think you don't need to do that. Just try and make sure that at least they can see your face. Honestly, if you're in a room that has a light on, normally that's enough to make sure they can see your face, but that's a really good thing to test out with a friend. And then with the whole background noise, you know, backgrounds, whatever, everybody's pretty much remote right now, and employers are remote too for the most part, and so they're going to understand. They, you know, some of them may have kids or roommates and other pets and things that are also making noise, so they are in the same boat as you. But to the best possible extent, you want to control what environment you're in. So if your roommates are not going to go to the fair, tell them to shut up and not play their music loud, right? So like, it's the things that, like, what can you control? You can say, I'm going to the fair, I need to make a good first impression, please be quiet. There still may be some quiet background noises, but it's different when somebody's, you know, like yelling or, you know, playing something really loud or, you know, banging pots and pans around. So do your best to control the environment that you're in. All right, so following up with employers is something that we talk about with in-person fairs, and it is just as important in the virtual realm. So employers tell us verbatim that the students that they want to hire are the ones that they see over and over again, and that includes things like going to the career fair, going to their other events that are listed in Handshake, following up after the career fair, making sure that your application materials are in tip-top shape, trying to do some networking and making some connections. All of those things are things that help employers hire you and that make employers want to hire you. So how do you go about that? Doesn't hugely matter. You can use email, you can use LinkedIn, you can ask for contact information during your session. Typically you get a business card. Obviously that's not going to happen with the virtual format, but you can always ask for an email and say, would you be willing to share your email address with me? I'd love to continue this conversation, something like that. And I would follow up with everyone, even if you learn that their position wasn't going to be a good fit, even if the company isn't going to be a good fit. People change jobs. So that recruiter could change jobs and go to a company that you really care about, and you want to make sure that you gave them the best possible first impression the last time you met with them. But your circumstances could change too. Sometimes students change majors and then all of a sudden that company is a better fit, or you decide that, you know, you don't want to be super picky and you want an internship no matter what, and so you're willing to be a little bit more flexible. So no matter what, always send that thank you note. So in that thank you note, what do you want to do? You want to make sure that you thank them for their time. So make it clear you are grateful for however long it was that they spent with you. Do your best to list something specific from the interaction. So if they answered one of your questions like Katie was talking about, and you had a really good question, or whatever their answer was gave you some really good insight into the company or what the internship would be like or whatever, you want to make sure that you refer to that, because it's going to show that you were clued in, that you were really paying attention to what the interaction was. It's going to make them feel closer to you because it's more than just a generic, hey, thanks for talking to me note. If they did not talk about next steps in your session with them, it would be appropriate to inquire about those next steps. If they did talk to you about them, don't ask about them. It's going to make it seem like you weren't paying attention. And then it is also appropriate to include your contact resume or contact information and or your resume. So that might be an appropriate spot for you to attach your resume, especially if they indicated an interest and a challenge with finding it on Handshake or something like that. So that would be an appropriate place to put that too. All right, so it is almost time for questions. So just to connect with career development, there is a professional mentor program information session tonight at 6 p.m. There's also another one Monday at 10 a.m. But the program is open to our sophomores and our juniors, as well as graduate students with 3 semesters left until graduation. And it connects you with a mentor until graduation. So a really good chance to get some hands-on mentoring in the industry or field that you want to go into. So if you're interested in that, you can find the link on Handshake. You can schedule an appointment with your career coach. We take appointments from 8:30 to 5 Eastern, Monday through Friday. So that link is there. If you want to schedule an appointment, please don't email us. Please just go to Handshake, because that is what we are going to tell you to do after you send us that email. You can also go to our drop-in hours. They are all throughout the year, every Monday through Friday from 2 to 4 p.m. But this week, starting today, we're actually offering drop-ins until from 12 to 5. So this is some extended career fair drop-in. So the rest of this week and the next Monday, we'll offer them from 12 to 5. And then actually the day of the fair, because it's virtual, we have an opportunity to help you all out instead of helping set up for the fair. So from 9 to 12, the day of the fair, we'll also be offering drop-ins. If I were you, I would not put it off that late, because I think you would not be alone, and that could be a really busy time for drop-ins. And because drop-ins are first come, first served, I just can't guarantee that we would be able to help you out that morning, especially if you had class or something else too. So I would say don't put it off, try and get in sooner rather than later. But we do have those last minute day of drop-ins if you need the assistance. And we have a couple resources here, but what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put these in the chat. I'm gonna stop screen sharing, and we're gonna open it up to questions so you all have a chance to ask anything that we can clarify or anything that we can clear up, or just anything else. You can unmute yourself if you so choose, or you can type something in the chat, and I'm gonna share a couple different resources in the chat. All right, so we have one question so far about how many students will be in the group sessions. So that is a great question. It is going to depend on the company and how many of you are interested in that company. So I anticipate like a smaller group session would be maybe 5 students, and a larger group session could be 50 or more. I would imagine most of them are probably going to be more in the like 10 to 30 range, just because of students and the number of group information sessions that most companies are offering. And obviously the vibe is going to change. The larger the group, the harder it is for you to like kind of stand out and ask a question. But if it's a small group, definitely have questions prepared no matter what, because if it's a small group, you could ask them and really shine and stand out. Even if it is a large group, chances are they'll have a time for questions, and if you can ask, you're going to stand out from the other people in the session. And then we have another question: do we need an elevator pitch if we are only in group sessions? It seems like most of these tips are for the one-on-one sessions. Can you explain more what the 30-minute group information sessions are like? So hopefully what I already shared is a little bit helpful, but the one-on-one sessions is going to be a standard career fair interaction. The information session is going to depend. So there are basically 2 kinds of themes that I've seen when I've been looking. One of them is an information session, and that's where the employer, kind of like what Katie and I have done today, is going to be talking for the most of the time. It's going to be them holding the floor, and then they might open it up for questions. The other format is an AMA, or an Ask Me Anything or a Q&A kind of format, and that would be like Katie and I are the employers, and instead of just giving you 15 minutes to ask questions, we give you the whole time to ask questions, and that's listed when you go in to sign up, so they called it information session or AMA session. So you can kind of see that. So it's going to depend. But either way, I would say you don't really need a pitch in a group session. If it's a group session, you're probably just going to say kind of like, "Hi, I'm Ashton, and this is my major, and here's my question for you," or something like that. So you don't need to worry so much about having that full put together pitch if you're only doing group sessions. Great questions. What else do you want us to clarify for you? Is the general sequence of events: we attend the session, then we apply for the internship/job after the session if we are interested. Katie, you want to take this one?
Yeah, sure. So I would say it's going to depend. You might notice that some companies will have positions posted currently, and then they might tell you in your one-on-one session, "Oh yeah, we have XYZ internships posted right now if you want to go in and apply for that. And usually the employer will tell you, like, it's an online application, visit our website or visit this link or apply on Handshake. But as Rachel mentioned before, there might be some companies that don't have jobs posted currently, or maybe they tell you, oh, we have a summer internship that would be really great for you. And that would be an even better reason for you to follow up with the employer and say something to the effect of, hi, it was so great to meet with you today. I was really excited about the summer internships that you mentioned, and I'm hoping that we can stay in touch so that you can update me when that position comes out. Or the other thing that you can do too, after following up, is find that company on Handshake and favorite them, so that when they do have jobs that get posted, you can get notified right away too. So I think that's another thing to keep in mind too. But yeah, it'll really just depend on, I think a lot of companies will have things posted, but some may not too. So seeing what they have posted on Handshake can help beforehand too, and then going based on that, I would say.
Okay, so we have another question. So I've been putting a couple things in the chat. So if you want those, I would encourage you to open all the links because they will go away after this call ends, and then you will not be able to access them and you will be sad. So I would say open them now, and then if you decide you don't need it, you can close it, but go ahead and open them, and that way they're there. So we have a question. With this being recorded, I assume it will be posted somewhere so I can watch what I missed. Where would that be? I don't know that we are actually going to post it, but I can send it to you. If you could put your Xavier email in the chat. We try and, just for the like kind of transparency, when we post things online, we don't necessarily get to track who is engaging with our office. Whereas when you come to the session, you register for the session, we know that you engaged. And it's just for our tracking purposes, we try not to put a ton of stuff just out there for everyone to find. So if you send me your Xavier address, I can make sure that you get the recording, or at the very least the slides. I'll have to make some edits to the recording, but I can make sure you get the information at least. Other questions?
And one thing to add too, if you have questions that you aren't comfortable posting in the chat or saying out loud, please attend our drop-ins or schedule an appointment, because we are happy to help with career fair prep on an individual basis too.
All right, we've had a couple folks log off, but if you are wanting to stick around and ask questions, this is, the end of the presentation. So if you all don't have any questions, that's totally okay. But otherwise, yeah, if you want to stick around and ask us questions, the group normally gets smaller. So if you want to ask something in person, you can do that too. But thanks for joining us today. Yeah, it was so good to present, and we hope that you will make time to attend the fair on Tuesday.